Lester and Miriam had been on this road many times on their yearly trek up to Oregon for the Shakespeare Festival. So many times that the years had mounted up, and now they were quite old. Lester still had his hair, but it was all white. Miriam had become quite frail. She now walked with a slight stoop, but they both still looked forward all year to this trip. Thinking about it filled them with romantic anticipation. The first years they had come, they had gone river rafting as well as to the plays, but they stopped that after Lester's back went out. Since those days, he had had 2 operations, one on his back and the other on his knee. And Miriam had developed a heart condition, but perhaps because of their infirmities, these getaways had become even more precious to them. After all these years, they were still in love, more in love than ever, and each secretly wondered what they would do if anything ever happened to the other. They hadn't been able to see Mount Shasta on their way up to Oregon. It had been shrouded in clouds. Usually they could see it looming ahead of them all the way from Red Bluff, but this year there had been thunderstorms. On their way back, clouds were still clinging to the mountain, so that only the snowy peak peeked through. But as they came around its other side, they saw it in its full glory, the snow still halfway down its flank, covering the heart. It took their breath away. They always brought a picnic with them in the car, never stopping for lunch or for any other reason. But this year, they took a slight excursion. Miriam had wanted to see the new Sundial Bridge in Redding. She had read about it. To their surprise, it was a footbridge over the Sacramento River. It was high noon, so the sun beat straight down on them as they walked down the middle of the bridge, arm in arm. Miriam was nervous about getting too close to the edge. They decided not to go all the way across. When they got back to the car, it was radiating heat in the unshaded parking lot. At first, they didn't know how they were going to be able to touch the door handle to open it. Miriam rummaged in her bag for a tissue to put over it, and this worked, but the car was a furnace when they climbed in. Thinking ahead that they might get tired on the drive, Miriam had packed some Pepsis to drink for the caffeine. But now the sodas were disgustingly warm. As soon as Lester started the car and the air conditioning started blasting, Miriam held hers against the vent. The air would soon be icy. "Do you want me to drive?" Miriam asked. "No, that's okay," Lester said, "but this is our last stop until we get home." As they drove back to the highway, he took a long pull on his Pepsi. Miriam decided not to drink hers, even though the air conditioner soon cooled it to a tolerable temperature. If she drank it, it would make her want to pee, and Lester didn't want to stop anymore until they got home, which wouldn't be for 4 hours. They rode along happily in silence, every so often stealing tender glances at each other. After several hours, however, Lester needed to pee. "I'm going to stop at the next rest stop," he told Miriam. It was the Pepsi. The rest stop was in the middle of nowhere, and it was like any other, with places to park, a picnic table, a men's room, and a ladies' room. "Are you going to pee too?" Lester asked as they both got out of the car. "As long as we're here," Miriam said over the top. "And dear, I'm going to leave my purse in the car, so be sure to lock it." Lester locked the car and went directly to the men's room, where he relieved himself. It was hot here out in the middle of nowhere, he noticed, as he made his way back to the car and unlocked it. He got in, put on his seatbelt, and headed out down the road. He was not heading home. He was never going to get home. Miriam found the ladies' room clean enough. There were paper toilet seat covers, and there was toilet paper and soap in the dispenser. But there were no paper towels. Miriam dried her hands on her hair, giving it a little curl. It was so hot and dry out here in the middle of nowhere that her hair felt brittle. She made her way back to the car, but the car wasn't there. Lester was gone. The day she had dreaded for years had finally come. She stood there in the middle of nowhere with nothing. She had left her purse in the car with her cell phone and ID. After a while, she went and sat down at the picnic table. Night began to fall. Finally, she got up and began making her way through the dust.